Hi, my name is David Sewell, and I am a guitar instructor for lead guitar in Phoenix, Arizona. Today we're going to look at some of the tricky sections in Guitar 2 for Oye Como Va by Carlos Santana, arranged for 3 guitars by Brad Richter. So I'm going to point out these hard, little tricky sections in the score. I'm going to demonstrate them. I'm going to go over the mechanics. Then we're going to come up with some ways you can practice these sections either in the classroom or at home to help you get these parts down, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun in the process. So here's the score. You can see I've broken the tricky parts down into 3 sections, an A, B, and a C. So let's first look at this A. I know all these visuals I have, they will make much more sense soon. So first, while I have these 2 measures up here, I'm going to play them so you can hear what they sound like. Okay. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, and then before we get into the visuals here, let me talk about the mechanics. So when I'm playing this, everything in these 2 measures is on the 3rd and 2nd string. And I'm playing all those notes as free strokes. So as you can see when I'm playing this, my fingers are going up into my palm. Make sure you're not doing anything like this where you're plucking up on the string. The motion should be really simple. Just bringing your fingers into your palm. This is a very natural motion. We do this all the time in our day-to-day lives when we pick something up, like a cup, to drink out of, or go to grab for something. You're always doing this motion. It's the same thing when you're doing free strokes. And also for some added stability, you can take your thumb and rest it on the 4th, 5th, or 6th string. Personally for this, I like to rest it on the 4th string. This makes me feel the most stable when I'm playing those open 2nd and 3rd strings. So now looking back at the score, what I've done for the visuals, I can go ahead and take this part down. What I've done for this visuals, the numbers are how you should count this piece. So we're in 4/4. So you should be counting in your head 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and then the red circles, I've circled where you actually articulate, where you actually have to pluck notes. So here we pluck on the downbeat of 1, the downbeat of 2, which is a dotted quarter note. So if you remember dots, that means you take half of the note's original value and add it back to the note. So a quarter note gets 1 beat, half of that is half a beat. So you add that to this note and it gets a beat and a half. So it will ring for the downbeat of 2, the upbeat of 2, and the downbeat of 3. The next note is an 8th note tie, and this happens on the upbeat of 3. So if you remember ties, it's when the 2nd note, the note that's connected to the tie, is not articulated, but its full value is heard. So we have an 8th note here getting half of a beat tied to another 8th note getting the first half of beat 4, the downbeat, but it's not articulated. It rings throughout that first half of the beat. So this rings from the upbeat of 3 to the downbeat of 4. And then on the upbeat of 4, we have another 8th note tie. This time the notes change to A and C sharp. It's the C sharp is just like the regular C you're used to playing, except it's 1 fret higher on the guitar. And I'm playing that with finger 3, and I'm playing the A with finger 2. same strings, but both of these notes are on the 2nd fret. So this is another tie, so it's tied to another 8th note on beat 1 of the 2nd measure, which again is tied to a dotted quarter note, which happens on the upbeat of 1. So this 8th note here, this tied 8th note on the upbeat of 4, rings for the upbeat of 4 all the way into the upbeat of 2. So in the 2nd measure of this section, you only have to articulate on beats 3 as a quarter note and beat 4 as a quarter note. So there's kind of a cool pattern going on here that might help you remember how to play this. The 1st measure, you articulate on the first 2 downbeats, and then you articulate on the upbeat of 3 and the upbeat of 4. So we got 2 downbeats and 2 upbeats. Then the next measure, you have a lot of time before you have to play the downbeat of 3 and 4. And in order to get this, I'd actually recommend taking your guitar, setting it down, and clapping this. So even if you don't even have a guitar handy, you can practice this section just by clapping and getting the rhythm. If you can clap the rhythm, it's going to be much, much easier for you to actually play it on the guitar. So I would first start at like a much slower tempo than the actual tempo of the song, and see if you can clap along to a metronome. If you don't have a metronome, you can even do this just by counting out loud while you clap. Even if you have a metronome, I'd recommend doing this. It's very useful for you just to actually see and feel where you are going to be playing. So I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to do this, these 2 measures twice. I'm going to give myself a 4-beat count off before I begin. So 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. So the tricky part of this might be coming in on the upbeat of 3 and the upbeat of 4 in this first measure. Sometimes it might feel a little odd to not come in right on the downbeat. And this is very important to get used to this, because not all music is all on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. If music was like that, music would be pretty boring, in fact. And that's what's cool about this song by Carlos Santana. The rhythm is interesting. We got a lot of notes coming in on the upbeat, and it gives the song a really cool groove. So what I would recommend to do to get used to this, or to feel this better, is by stomping your foot on the downbeat of 3 and on the downbeat of 4 and clapping on those upbeats. It'll be something like this. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. It's definitely a fun way to practice, and it'll definitely help you feel that rhythm much better. Okay, so now let's go to the B section. And this is a 4-measure stretch, and I've broken it down into 2 parts. I think this is important when you're practicing music. Try to break things down into smaller bites. They're going to be much easier to chew up, so to speak, and digest, and to get under your fingers and be able to understand it better. Smaller chunks is always a good idea. So first we're going to break this down into the first 2 measures, which I labeled as B1. So again, I have the numbers above, and I have circled where you play. So first, let me play these 4 measures for you. so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay. 1, 2, ready, go. All right. So let me first talk about the mechanics of this. I'm articulating everything with a free stroke for the most part, except for the spots that are staccato. What I'm doing in that case is whenever I have a staccato note, and that's those notes that have the dots underneath them, whenever I'm plucking them, my next finger, alternating between I and M, I will touch that string to dampen it, opposed to having just straight free strokes without staccatos. And that's what you want to try to do to stop the sound of those notes. The whole rest of the line is all free stroke. And again, I have my thumb on string 4 for stability. And all of the notes of this line are on the 3rd string. Nothing goes to the 2nd string or the string lower. And it's just 2 notes. We have open G and then A on the 2nd fret. So again, the tricky part here is not necessarily the left or right hand mechanics, it's the rhythm. We have a lot of 8th note rests. So if you see here, this symbol here is the same as an 8th note, except it gets half a beat of silence. So again, something like this, I would take the guitar and put it down. I think a much more beneficial way to practice this would be to clap it. So here's how I would approach something like this. I would do what I've heard this called bracket practice. Let me kind of draw something so you can see what I mean. So I'll make a bracket like this. So first, I'll begin by just trying to clap the first 2 beats in time. And I'll do that about 5 times until I can clap this rhythm correctly. And then once I can do that, I will add 1 more beat, slowly but surely adding beat after beat until I can clap all 4 beats, or all 4 measures. So let me kind of show you what I mean. So I'll start 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So once you get that down, slowly move 1 beat in. And now we try to do those 3 beats. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now 1 more. Let's try to get this whole measure. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, it's kind of a fun way to practice. It's like every time you get this down, and you can do it 5 times in a row, you move the bracket over 1 beat. So it's almost like every time you move this bracket over, it's like a video game. It's like you're leveling up. So adding 1 more beat is like the next level. And it's kind of fun this way. So I would do it 5 times, make it more of like a challenge for yourself. If you can do it 5 times in a row without a mistake, add the beat. But if you mess up, So like if you're on your third try and you mess up, you have to start those 5 over. So you're really making a game out of this, and it's a whole lot of fun to practice this way. So now let's go to the third section, which begins on measure 27 and goes into measure 30 and then is repeated. And by the way, if you can get these 3 sections down, you have the whole piece down, because it's just these 3 sections repeated in different orders. So here, first let me demonstrate, and then I'll go over the mechanics, and then we can talk about practicing them. So first, let me play this for you. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, so what I'm doing here, if you notice on the third beat of measure 27, I'll pull it back up, you can see there is a marking here. And what this is a slur. It is a left-hand slur. So we're going to be articulating that D here with your third finger. By the way, I have my right-hand fingerings at the bottom if you want to use these. So when you pluck this D, this note here means you're going to pull off with your third finger to articulate this note. And this is kind of the tricky part of this little section. So let's talk about left-hand slurs. So a left-hand slur is when you're articulating one note, and then without the use of your right hand, you're articulating the lower note with this hand. A good way to make sure you're doing slurs correctly is if you can just hold a note down and then be able to articulate a lower note like this. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling down and I'm resting on the string underneath it. If you just simply lift off of the string, you hear how quiet that is? Opposed to this. So essentially you're plucking almost with your left hand. A good exercise you can do for just left hand slurs, and you don't really, it doesn't really matter what you do in this hand, but you will just go up the guitar on 1 fret, and then do the same thing with your second finger. Fourth finger. And I would do it as slow as you have to. It's always good to do this with a metronome. You can even ascend and descend. So let's do it like this. Then go back down. And again, doesn't really matter how you articulate with this hand. It's all about being able to pull off and have that lower note sound. So the other tricky part about this section is kind of relates to what we talked about in section A. Here we have notes coming in on the upbeat. So here I would practice it just the same. I would clap this rhythm. And then maybe right here on measure 28, I would stomp on the downbeat of 1 and clap on the upbeat. So I'll demonstrate what this would sound like. So I'm going to start clapping at measure 27. 1 and 2, ready and go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. I'm trying not to stomp too loud with my left foot. I live in an upstairs apartment. But yeah, that's the idea. So that's all for me. I hope some of these suggestions help. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have fun and good luck and happy practicing. Take care.